Welcome to the Naked Truth About Retirement. I'm Lori Vogelsberg, and I'm the current president of the Retirees Association here at the college. We're glad that you're all at the point where you're thinking about retiring. I can speak for all of us up here. We're glad we did. Just a little bit. No heckling. Our panel discussion today will focus on a variety of topics, including things that we all need to be aware of, things that we've learned, and what things worked for some of us and what things didn't work. Lastly, we want to talk about how to get involved in the Retirees Association. Though approaching retirement is an exciting time, it's important to retire to something, whether it be travel, volunteering, a second career, not just from your current employment. Today, we'll touch on some topics that you might consider when planning for retirement. Don't let it sneak up on you. It's a very different lifestyle than going to work every day. So now I'll turn it over to Jonathan Bacon to get us started.
The one thing I would suggest is, and I know there have been a lot of changes in HR and in your retirement policies, but the one thing that I found very helpful was talking to HR as early as possible in advance of when you plan to retire. So check with them to see whether vacation days are compensated for, sick days, that sort of thing. And again, I know there's some changes, so it's extra important for you to check with HR before, as you plan. The other thing I want to talk about is the old three-legged stool they talk about for financially retiring. One is Social Security, one is whatever retirement plan you have, and the third one, of course, is investments. If you are not sure what your CAPERS, the retirement annuity would be, what your monthly income would be, there's a calculator at capers.org. And I'm going to warn you now that everything that's up on this slide will be made available to you afterwards. So you don't have to take a lot of notes. And if this works well, there will also be a video recording that you can refer back to. So don't worry about making a lot of notes. There's also a quick Social Security calculator that's available, and the link is up here. It's part of the ssa.gov website. And so be sure you're aware of what CAPERS will provide, what Social Security will provide. And of course, the third leg of the stool is what you have personally invested. And if you have invested in TIA or Lincoln Life or any of those ones, you can determine what you have there, what you would have to bring out to maintain your lifestyle. So next thing I want to talk about briefly is Social Security. I'm going to talk about Social Security, and then Lynn is going to talk about Medicare and basically signing up for it. So there's a lot to know about those two, and they are going to be fundamental to your retirement. You need to weigh carefully all your options and determine what plan is best for you. The decisions you make now, believe me, will affect you for the rest of your life. So be sure you are aware financially of what you can depend on for both healthcare, Medicare, and Social Security. The absolute youngest that you can retire, assuming you were born after 1960, is 62, but that's with reduced benefits. The full retirement age, FRA, has increased steadily over the last few years. And so if you were born 1960 or later, the full retirement age is now 67. So you can retire at 62, but your full benefits don't kick in until you're 67. On top of that, the increase for every year after 67 that you work, there is a 0.2% increase in your benefits per month that you work beyond 67. That equates to 8% a year. So if you are 68, your benefit will be 8% more than it would have been if you retired at 67. And it continues on up from there. there's a Social Security office in Lenexa, and the counselors are there, and they can help you work through exactly when your full retirement age is, what your income would be, et cetera. One individual, Sean Gifford, has been, he's a counselor there. He has worked with the continuing ed program here, talking about Social Security. So he is a good resource. And I'm going to give you this one number. It'll be in the information that we provide, but it's the office number is 877-898-4705, and Sean's extension is 28310. Again, remember, we are going to notify you via the JCC list how you can get all the information, get the recording, and get a copy of the slides. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lynn.
Thanks, JB. As Jonathan indicated, 62 is the very earliest, you can take Social Security, but I implore you not to, because you're going to miss out on a lot of extra money. In my case, my full retirement age was 65, and I delayed my Social Security to 67. And now I really wish I delayed it to 70, but 67 was the age I was when I retired. And so that's why I took it then. But just so you know the whole impact, your Medicare premiums are taken out of your Social Security. And if you have a higher income, your income adjustments are taken out of Social Security, and taxes are taken out of Social Security. So I have a monthly deduction of $1,000 from my Social Security. So the longer you stay in, the more money you get, but you don't get any more if you go past 70. 70 is the end for those extra bumps of 7 to 8%. So to sign up for Medicare, you go to their website, medicare.gov, and it has a wealth of information about all the various Medicare options. You can't enroll in Medicare any earlier than age 65, but you can actually sign up about 3 months ahead of your 65th birthday. If you're still working like I was, you don't have to sign up for Medicare at that age. I signed up at 67 when I retired. That's providing that you have proof of that you've been covered by insurance by your employer. As long as you're covered by insurance, there's no penalty for waiting. So I went ahead and took Part A because there's no fee for Part A at 65, but I delayed taking Part B to 67. And I'll talk a little bit about those plans. This book, Medicare and You, is on their website, and it's in electronic format. And then once you sign up for Medicare, you'll get one of these in the mail every month unless you've elected to receive it electronically. But it answers lots and lots of questions, and I really recommend that you take a look at it on the website. There are 4 parts of Medicare: A, B, C, and D. And Part A is for hospital coverage. And again, there's no charge for most people. And it's wise to sign up for it as soon as you turn 65, even though you have insurance covered by the college, because then your Part A will become secondary to your insurance from the college. And if you have to go to the hospital, that's a very good thing. And the only reason to delay signing up for it past 65, maybe you might need to earn more quarters in order to fully be vested in the the plan so that you get the full amount. Part B is for medical expenses, and that includes doctor visits, lab tests, other kinds of medical tests, your COVID shots coming out of there, any other vaccines you need. And there are no copays unless you do not have a Medicare supplement plan. You don't have to get permission to see a specialist, and you don't have to pay a copay to see specialists. So Medicare will pay 80% of the approved Medicare charge. So when you get a bill, you will see like your doctor billed $179 for your office visit, and Medicare approved, I'm going to just pull this out of the thin air. They approved $80 of that. Okay, then they'll pay 80% of that amount. That extra 20% is where your Medigap policy comes in and they pay the rest. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. So there is a charge for you for Part B, and that's based on your adjusted gross income. So if you retired this year, they're going to look back at your taxes for 2 years ago and see what your adjusted gross income is. And then that determines how much you're going to pay for your Part B. If you are a single person and your income is $91,000 or less, or a couple, and your income's $182,000 or less, your monthly pay for Part B is $170.10, and that would be per person if you're married. If you have a higher income, then you have to pay what's called an income related monthly adjusted amount called the IRMA. And so there's a chart and you can look at that, and that's on the website to tell exactly how much you're going to be charged for Medicare. And those amounts go up incrementally as your income goes up, and they're adjusted every year. So they go up a little bit every year. And again, this premium is going to be deducted from your Social Security check. If you elected to delay your Social Security start time, though, what they will do is they will send you a bill for 3 months of premiums. And so I got a bill for $900 after I retired because I didn't quite, have the timing right. So that's something to keep in mind because that can make a big impact on your take-home pay. Medicare Parts A and B together are called Original Medicare, and you can use it at any doctor or any hospital in the United States that takes Medicare. Medicare Part C is called Medicare Advantage, and it's actually privatized Medicare that is offered by health insurance companies. For example, in Kansas City, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Kansas City has a big Medicare Advantage plan. And many of those plans include coverage for drugs and hearing and vision care, as well as the Part A and B services in the Original Medicare. But under Medicare Advantage, you most likely will need prior approval to see a specialist based on the plan you use. You may pay the same premium for Part B that you paid based on your adjusted gross income and a premium. So Medicare Advantage operates more like an HMO or a PPO, where you need to use their list of approved doctors and hospitals, and there are copays for their services. There was just a study that was in the Star that I just read like a few days ago that revealed that some Medicare Advantage plans were denying payments for services that Original Medicare would have paid for. So that's just something to be aware of and to maybe be cautious about. Medicare Part D is for prescription medications. And again, you'll pay a fee for your drug plan, and you'll pay that directly to the insurer. If you have a higher adjusted gross income, you're going to pay that income related monthly adjustment, and that's going to be deducted from your Social Security check. So when you decide what plan to choose, you need to consider your health status, where you normally receive your health care, and how much you travel. Blue Cross, for example, if you chose Medicare Advantage Blue Cross, they're pretty much across the United States, and nobody covers travel outside the United States, but some don't. So that's something for you to check into. So the Medigap policy that I was talking about is that pays that extra 20%. is something that you also will be signing up for on your Medicare.gov website, as well as the Medicare.gov for the medication for the Part D. You are allowed to change your Medigap insurer during the open enrollment period, but I tried this, so I've got some caveats for you. When you first sign up for a Medigap policy, you're going to have to answer a bunch of health questions. But if you want to switch to another insurer, you go through pretty extensive underwriting. And I'm talking over 100 health questions. And in addition to that, they have a service that compiles a list of all the medications you've taken for the last 5 years. And they use that to determine whether or not they're going to accept you and how much they're going to charge you. So that's something to be aware of. In my case, the service that did this, looking at my medications for 5 years, came back and said, well, we aren't going to insure you because you have cancer and rheumatoid arthritis. And I have neither one of those things. So just keep that in mind. You can switch your insurers, though, on your anniversary date. So the anniversary date, the date that you first signed up for your Medigap policy, it's better to change then, because you don't go through the extensive underwriting that you do during open enrollment. So if you do feel like you need to switch then. You can switch from original Medicare to Medicare Advantage and back and forth. But again, if you do that, the plan you switch from might not want you back. So be really careful what you pick the first time, because you know, it's something to be aware of. You can look at the plan's history and their ratings and such on Medicare.gov, and I encourage you to do that. And you can also, if you go to Medicare.gov, you'll see a lot of information about each of those individual companies. If you need some assistance with choosing your Medigap plan or your Part D plan, you can make an appointment with our local SHIC office in Olathe. And SHIC is called Senior Health Insurance Counseling for Kansas. It's a free service. Their number is 800-860-5260. And JCCCRA member Gail Callahan is also a SHIC volunteer, and I'm sure she would also be happy to help you. If you have a trusted friend who's been through this process, ask them how it worked for them and what they would do differently. But if you'd rather just do your own thing, just log on to Medicare.gov, create an account, and then you click on Find Health and Drug Plans. You'll put in your zip code, and then you'll get a list of all the plans in your area that are approved for Kansas. And I looked today and there are around 30. So there's a lot to look at, and there's a lot to choose from. So good luck and happy hunting.
And so I want to talk to you about taxes. You know, a lot of times we think when we retire, we're getting tax-free money. And in essence, we are, but we aren't. Because when you think about what you're going to receive in retirement, you've got Social Security, you've got CAPERS, you've got TIAA or Lincoln. You maybe have some other investments you've got, maybe with other firms you've worked with. And some of you may choose to work part-time or have other employment. All that income adds together just like now, and you pay taxes on it. So the same is true with Social Security. That is all part of your income, and that is going to be taxed. In fact, they say sometimes up to 85% of your benefits could be taxed if your adjusted gross income is more than $44,000. And of course, CAPERS benefits are taxable on the federal return, but not on the state return. So there's some help there. The SECURE Act mandates that you begin taking distributions from your traditional IRA, 401b, 403b plans when you turn 72. The required minimum distribution from TIAA or other retirement plans is taxable on both state and federal returns. Now, the IRS has developed a table to use and figure out how much will be required to withdraw each year depending upon your age. And as you age, greater distributions are required. So most of you, this isn't going to impact you until you're 72, and that's when you will have to begin taking distributions. So here's an example. See, Jonathan, do you have that up there?
Yes.
Yeah, so here's an example. So for example, let's say you retire with a pretty substantial amount of money, $500,000. Let's say it's in your TIAA or Lincoln or one of those plans. So as of December 31st, 2021, you've got that much money. That's and you're turning 72 in 2022, for example. The IRS distribution for a 72-year-old is 27.4 years. So if you divide that by your 500,000, that means your withdrawal for that period, for that year, will be 18,248. That's the amount you're required to take out. Now, some of you will be withdrawing all along. You may need this money as part of your living expenses. Some of you may not. So all I'm saying, if you don't need it and you don't begin drawing till you're 72, just keep in mind every year it's going to continue to, you'll be required to take more and more out. That's just the way the government works on this particular plan. The required minimum distributions apply to your traditional IRA, 401, and 403 retirement plans, and not to Roth investments. I don't know if any of you who have Roth investments, that means it's an investment after tax dollars. So you're not getting a tax benefit. But the way a Roth helps you when you're withdrawing money from the account is you don't have to pay tax on it. It's free money. It's really good advice, if you can, to have Roth in your profile as much as you can, because again, that will earn tax-free, whereas the other ones will not. You're gonna have to pay tax on it. There is one loophole we're gonna talk about, and that is what's called a QCD, a qualified charitable distribution. And so any charity of your choice, let's say you want to donate to the JCCC Foundation, for example, for scholarships, you can designate a certain amount of dollars to come directly from that, or your TIAA or Lincoln, and it's money that would have to be sent directly from the provider directly to the college. In other words, and the way that works, I'll read my notes here real quick. The QCD must be withdrawn from a traditional IRA account. You will not get a charitable deduction on your tax return, but your contribution will be excluded from your taxable income. You must direct the IRA custodian to make the check directly to the charity. If it's made out to you, it will not be counted as taxable income, even if you turn around and donate the money to charity. So that's something to keep in mind as you start considering retirement, as you start considering your money and your finances. Think about taxes, because that's just part of life.
It's good to see everyone here today. By the way, my name's Dave Ellis. I was here for 30 years in the counseling center, and I retired 3 years ago. And we're going to kind of change the subject up a little bit and talk about what it's like when you actually retire. Because a lot of times you think, what's that first month going to be like? What's that first year going to be like? And by the way, all of us up here in front of you, we're all on the Johnson County Community College Retirement Association board. And we have 7 or 8 other people that are on the board with us. So all of us are on that board. So let me just kind of tell you some of the things that I think you will probably be doing. And it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to cover everything. So I'm just going to give you some things. What it's like for me when I went through that first month is I started reading a lot more books, believe it or not. I had more time to read. Yeah, you can binge on Netflix if you want to. You never had that time to do that. And, so that's an idea that you could do, or any TV shows. I'm not a coffee drinker, but for some weird reason, when I retired, I went to every coffee house I could think of. I'm not sure why. But I think it's just because I had time to relax. I wasn't in a hurry. And it was something that I just enjoyed doing and meeting people and talking to people there. Some other things you can do is you can take a nap. You have time to take some naps, which I had plenty of time to do. You can go to restaurants and not have to worry about being back on time because you're working, and you can stay there a little longer, especially if you're meeting with friends and you have a chance to talk to them a little bit more. You can go to theater, you can go to musicals, and take short vacations. I recommend not a huge vacation right away because that's stressful. Just take a 2 or 3 day vacation when you first start out, and maybe towards the end of your first year, maybe take those longer vacations. You can do that. A lot of more time, people want to exercise more. A lot of the community centers that you go to, if you're a retirement age, a lot of them are free. Medicare will cover a lot of the community centers, and you'll be able to do that. And so those are just some of the things that I started doing. I'm sure everybody else up here has a different story than I do, but those are some things I was involved in. There's different theories about how much time you should be getting involved as soon as you retire. And I can tell you, just Dave Ellis got involved right away, but my wife took about a year before she started doing different kinds of things. So everybody has a different theory on that, and it's just be up to you. One of the ways you can ease into retirement, which I think would be very, very helpful for you, is that the board here, we have a lot of things that you can do. We do a lot of going to museums. We go out to restaurants. I'm part of the barbecue group here on this committee. And in fact, a couple of weeks, we're going to a barbecue restaurant. And so we go out to eat. We have presentations on traveling that you can, and I think Lori will talk about this later on. But again, a lot of people have done travels. I did a presentation on some traveling I did in Utah and Arizona. So, but a lot of our members do that and talk, and there's all kinds of things that we're doing. And one of the things that struck me when I retired is that I've met a lot of people that I didn't even know the 30 years I was here during the retirement time. And there's a lot of people that I've met on these excursions that we've all gone on. And I think that's something that I would suggest that you want to try to do your first year. Try to get into a few of our activities and join the group. We would love to have you join our group. I'm a people person, and I've always have been. And that's one of the reasons why, and I'm doing a lot of mentoring right now with a lot of different folks. I'm teaching a class actually up in Leavenworth to inmates that I volunteered to do. And again, I'm doing a lot of volunteer things, and Anita's going to talk a little bit more about that. But those are some of the things that I did during that first year. I got started doing that. And a couple of pieces of advice on volunteering. This is just from my opinion. If you're volunteering and you want to do something, make sure that when you're talking to people you're volunteering with and saying, if I go on a vacation, is that okay? Because you don't want to be stuck in some sort of situation where you can't go if you're volunteering. So make sure you ask the people that. And most people, when you're volunteering, they'll let you go and be able to do that. A couple of transitions you'll need to work with. A lot of times when you're retiring, if you have grandchildren and they're local, they will know it when you retire. And so you'll get a lot of calls on that. And you all that are grandparents know it's difficult to say no sometimes, even though you really don't want to. And so, but that's the kind of thing that happens. So just be careful about that, but that will happen when you see that. The other option, the other things you have is with your spouse. So if you have a spouse, there's one scenario where your spouse is still working, which was happened to me when I retired. So there's a transition there about dealing with that. And then also when your spouse retires, that's another situation when both of you are retired and having to deal with it. So again, those are the kind of things that you have to kind of work through and talk about a little bit when you're going through this time. Just the last couple of weeks, my wife and I, and we really finally found something we really enjoy doing. We try to go to a different restaurant almost every Friday and go out for breakfast somewhere. And it's got to be different so we can find someplace different. And we've been really enjoying the Hearts, the different Hearts that are all over Kansas City. And we've been looking at all kinds of things in Kansas City. It's been really enjoyable for us. But again, you'll find that niche, if you're married or single, you'll find a lot of different kinds of things. I love retirement, to be really honest with you. I love what I'm doing. And I didn't leave my job because I didn't love my job. I left my job because I wanted to try a bunch of other things I didn't have time for. And that's one of the reasons I got out of it. So, but I love what I'm doing, and thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Anita Tebby, and I was with the Legal Studies program for 28 years in the business division. And I'm sorry, I lisp a little bit. I'm having some dental work, so I apologize. It's delightful to see you all. Thank you so much for coming. I know this is an incredibly challenging time of year, and I know that because I'm a student taking a class right now, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But what we have up here and what I want to talk about in a few minutes that I have is we have to keep our minds going, alive and well during this wonderful time of retirement. And I certainly agree 100% with Dave. I love teaching, but I also love being retired and being able to make so many good choices. And I will welcome you to the club when you decide to do that. But I'm looking at you and I go, they're too young looking. What's going on here? Yeah. So, but anyway, so the two things I want to talk about is I want to talk about keeping your mind active, and then I'm going to end up with talking about volunteering. Okay. So this first slide is about keeping your mind active. We're going to spend most of the time on that. And then we have 5 quick slides we're going to do on volunteering. Okay. So I'm going to talk very personally, like Dave did, and I appreciate that, Dave. Here's what I do to keep my mind active. I take classes, I teach classes, and I travel, the 3 T's. Okay. Now, how I take classes, the main thing I do is every semester, meaning fall and spring, I take a credit class at Johnson County Community College. And I take it for credit. I don't like to admit this, but I don't have the self-discipline to study and really learn it unless I know I'm going to get a grade. And someone said to me, so you at your age are motivated by grades. I said, that would be exactly right. Okay. So there's a new aspect to Anita Tebby that you probably came to hear about. Okay. I have taken psychology classes. That's what I'm taking now. I've taken econ. I've taken philosophy classes. I've taken American Lit, the whole gamut. I just look at the schedule and I go, what's grabbing me today? Okay. We have such marvelous teachers here. The faculty is incredible. And I have gotten to know some of you better. And what an honor it has been. The other thing that is really good is that the college pays for me taking these classes. It's tuition reimbursement. All I do is go to the human resources, and I've already done it. I've signed up for a world modern history class for the fall. And I just fill out this form and they process it for me and it's paid for. What a wonderful, wonderful benefit for us that are retired. Other things that I have done in taking classes, I have to tell you this one, and I'll make it real quick. During COVID, I was like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do with all this time? So somehow Yale University gets hold of my name and says, why don't you take a class on happiness? So I do. And guess what? There are 1,000 of us in the class. So I don't know if, it was all virtual. I don't know if we are all unhappy or we just didn't know what to do with ourselves. But what happens is you get on Harvard, you get on Yale, they're all sending you, this is just big time, 50 and older people just waiting to hear from you. So that's the taking of classes. The teaching of classes, I became connected with Osher. I'm sorry, I'm probably not hearing me enough. Osher, and that's through University of Kansas, and it's a lifelong learning institute. And I take classes through them, and I also teach classes for them. And basically what the format is, it's 6 hours, and you teach a class 2 hours, and then another 2 hours, another 2 hours. So it's 3 consecutive weeks. So starting in July 28th, I'm going to start teaching a class on the 13 presidential libraries that I have seen. Okay, and I'll break it down into 3 segments. I have taught a class on Native Americans. I've taught a class on immigration. I've taught a class on Lewis and Clark. I've taught numerous classes, and you just become an expert in it, and you inform them you're an expert, and they let you do it. Okay, so that's the other thing I do to get this teaching drive out of me is I have two other things I do. I work with Catholic Charities, and I teach students who are green card people and wanting to be naturalized. And I help them prepare for the naturalization test, which is 100 questions. And that gives me such great pleasure. These people are just, they want so much to become part of our country, even more than just physical presence. The other thing I do, I work with adult education through Johnson County Community College. And the two programs I work with is GED, helping students prepare for GED. And I just came Monday and Wednesday night. I teach over at West Park. And there was a special reading class. There's about 6 of them that didn't do too well on their pre-GED test. So they pull them out. And as we do, help people help themselves, give them a reading class. And I do that every Monday and Wednesday night. And on Tuesday night, I go there and I help in the English as Second Language program, which again, you're so inspired by these people that just want to learn and better themselves and better their family. And I'm not a teacher there because I'm not qualified, but I help. Okay, so that's the teaching aspect to it. The last thing, and I know I'm going on and I'll make this quick, is I like to travel. And I'm going to promote Road Scholar. And this is a special group, and the website is up there, but they have a special program for grandparents and grandchildren. So I have 5 grandchildren. When they turn 10, I take them on a special trip. They choose it. So Ryan and I, who is now 12 because he got bumped because of COVID, we're going to Toronto and Niagara Falls this July. I can't tell you, that will be the highlight of my summer, spending 5 days with Ryan and Ryan liking that he's spending 5 days with me. So that's that. Okay. So that's my travel, and I don't know the amount of money that Osher spends on travel, but I just got this book, and there are all kinds of programs, and the benefit is that you're with other people, and I, who have no sense of direction, I just show up, and pay the money, and then I meet all these wonderful people. Okay, that's enough on that. So that's taking classes, teaching classes, and travel. Okay, let's go quickly through the other slide. Okay, this is a volunteer. There is incredible amount of opportunities out there for you to volunteer. And Dave just mentioned one, mentoring the prisoners. And what we have here is, you go to the next slide. What I'm going to talk about very, very quickly, because you can get this all online. Johnson County Community College is just waiting for you to retire. They've got 9 fantastic programs for you. And then we have the general volunteering, and then the city and county. Okay, so these are the, let's see, back up one here. Okay. Let me make sure I've got those. Okay, the Operation Breakthrough. Okay, all right. That's the general one. All right. I think I'm on a different slide, Jonathan. Can you back up more?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, go to Johnson County.
Okay.
Okay, all right. And back up one more. Okay, if I would talk faster, you could. Okay, all right. Okay, Johnson County Community College has 9 programs that you can get involved in. And I'm not going to read these to you, okay? But they are just waiting for you. And if you see the last one there, the Johnson County Adult Education one, that's the one that I'm involved in with the tutoring and the teaching over at West Park, okay? All right, and you go through them and I was amazed. And all you have to do is go online and put in Johnson County Community College opportunities for volunteers. And you'll get a application and you fill that out and then you talk to the right person and they're saying, we welcome you with open arms. Okay. The next one, let's see, you go, so those are the 9. Okay, all together. Okay, let's go to the next one, which is the general volunteer. Okay. All right. Okay. These are general ones. You all know them. You probably have heard of them. Operation Breakthrough, Habitat for Humanity. All of us have been involved in them somehow. Probably all of you have. I want Jonathan just to say a few words for Operation Breakthrough, which he is involved in just such a positive way. Jonathan, can you say a few words?
Sure. I started, I think it's been 4 years ago, working with infants at Operation Breakthrough. They have a preschool program. They also have an after-school program, and it goes all the way through high school. I started working with the infants because I had this great idea that I'd like to, rock the babies to sleep and just kind of, sit in a rocking chair and that sort of thing. Well, they weren't quite that passive. But after that first year, I thought, well, I really enjoyed this. I mean, crawling around on the floor and doing that sort of thing. And I thought I'd like to stay with the infants. And they said, well, the kids have become attached to you. Would you work with the 1-year-olds, the ones who are, not babies, but going to 1-year-olds? So long story short, I'm working with a slightly different group, but basically the same kids. There's some coming and going, and they're now 4 going on 5. And they're just delightful. I go home, the highlight of my week is to go home and tell my wife all the cute things they did. For instance, one time, one of the teachers used the word heck, and the kids all of a sudden said, she said a bad word. And they're just a lot of fun to work with. So what I do is half a day a week. I go down there probably about 8:30 or so in the morning, and I leave about 12:30, 1 o'clock, depending on whether there are kids to read stories to before they go to nap and all. There are lots of opportunities at Operation Breakthrough too. They provide a store, a home, materials for families in the inner city core. And so they are looking not only for classroom volunteers, but they're also looking for people who will work with their storage room to take stuff, package it. Every time there's a holiday, they're working on providing boxes, bags of goods for the families. It's just one of many organizations in the city that you can get involved in and really feel good about the time you spend. And I'm looking forward to continuing that for as long as I can get down on the floor and crawl. So,
Thank you so much, Jonathan. And that what marvelous work. The last thing we want to talk about is county and city volunteers. And that's the last slide. And I was amazed when I pulled this up. Pull up Lenexa, pull up Olathe, pull up Gardner. They have a whole list of volunteer opportunities for us. And you can go through them, Meals on Wheels, pantries, etc. What struck me was that they're really big on having drivers, because some of us aren't able to drive and they're waiting for us to help other people, get to places. But you can go through that. The last thing that struck me, if you look at the very bottom one way over there, Lenexa seems to have a corner on activities. They have a chili fair, a chili challenge. They have a barbecue battle. They have an art fair. I think I need to change cities. I mean, that's amazing, but they're waiting for us out there. There are just so many wonderful things that we can do. And all I have to say to you, and I know this sounds so trite, but like last night when I'm coming home at 9 o'clock from helping these reading students, I am just smiling. I'm just grinning. I go, you take so much pleasure out of that. You learn from them and they learn from you. You get so much more than you ever give. And what a wonderful feeling as a human being. And I welcome you to this next stage of your life whenever you're ready. Thank you. Phil.
Dave and Anita kind of reminded me, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Phil Legman. I was here 45 years. You know, as I was walking over today, I saw a sign that said, exercise is medicine. So that's what I'm going to talk about. You know, one of the benefits I used to think was one of the best benefits the college offered was I could take off at noontime, go over to the gym, run a couple of miles, or go into Steve Dvorak's weightlifting class, get all energized. And I just encourage you, as you think about retirement, build in a plan of exercise for yourself, whether it's walking or running or biking, something, or yoga, or maybe you'd want to join a health club, but something to keep yourself active. Of course, all the things Anita's talked about will keep you very active, and Jonathan, but incorporate that in your retirement plan as well. I think you'll find that it'll make you well-rounded in all the things that you do. Okay, I'll pass on to Jean.
I've been gone too long. I'm Jean Smith, and I was here for about 35 years in the business office technology. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the phases that you may or may not go through after you retire. And again, I look out there and I think none of you are ready for retirement, but I think one of the goals in retirement is how you can make the most productive and meaningful use of those years. Because as you're going to live longer, you're going to live longer than I'm going to live, but each year, the life expectancy, like in 1950, was 65. And that gave you a retirement range of 3 to 5 years. The life expectancy in 2000 was 76, so it went up to 10 to 15 years. So I read that in 2022, your life expectancy is 79. You all have a long way to go before you get there, but I'm thinking we're going to live longer than 79 in 2022. But the point is that you have excuse me, now probably 20 years of retirement. So you have to do some kind of planning to survive those 20 years that you have in retirement. So you have to figure out what is the ingredient to a successful retirement period. These phases here, the first one is vacation time. The loss and lost is the second one. And the trial error was the third one. And then the last one is to reinvent and repurpose. All of this came out of a textbook. And I think, Jonathan, we have that referenced at the end of this, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
But one of the quotes in this book said, everyone says you've got to get ready financially. No, you have to get ready for retirement psychologically. Now, the person that said this was Lee Iacocca. And as you know, he was automobile executive. He worked for the Ford company and he worked for the Chrysler company, but he retired in 1992. When he retired, he was worth $150 million. So I'm not sure, I must have done something wrong because I didn't have that when I retired. But you have a financial plan, and people here have talked about this financial aspect of retiring. But I do think that psychologically, you have to think about what it is you're doing when you retire. So let's take a look at phase one. Phase one is the vacation time. Well, I didn't call this my vacation time. I call this my freedom time, because finally I was pretty much free of having things like a set schedule, right? I didn't have to get up in the morning, and I didn't have to be on campus, and I didn't have to be to that Monday, Wednesday class. So I was free. but you actually feel a sense of relief. I think when you retire, you actually feel a sense of excitement, and maybe, and you should feel a sense of accomplishment, because you have spent what, 20 or 30 years working at your career, and now you're retiring. So that is a great sense of accomplishment. You appreciate also not having to set time, not having that routine to get up every day. You have no schedule to meet. And travel, Dave talked about travel. A lot of times you may be ready to set up some travel, whether that's traveling, you know, across the country, whether that's traveling to a new state, whether that's traveling to a new county. So you do have some travel plans probably that are part of your list of things to do. You also might want to take that $150 million you have and buy something fun. So you might buy a new car. You might buy a new house, maybe a house down at the lake. And if you have a house down at the lake, then you're going to have to buy a new boat. Definitely. And you're going to have to go fishing, and you'll have to buy a new wardrobe to go fishing. So during this phase, you're excited a lot, and there are many, many things that you want to do. You also might want to spend more time with your spouse, all right, or your partner. And as Dave was talking, you might want to spend more time with your grandchildren, or maybe not. Or you might just want to sit around and do nothing. One of the things that I actually chose to do when I retired was to sit around and do nothing. And I will tell you that that took me about a week. And then after that, it was, no, I can't do this any longer. So you can be in this phase one for one day. You can be in it for a week, for a year. It's your choice, whatever you want. But at some point, you move on to phase two. And in phase two, we call this the loss or lost. Your freedom time is pretty much over. You know, you've had all the fun. I think Dave's still in phase one, though. He's been having too much fun doing things. But you get into phase two, and there are 5 significant losses that you may or may not go through. One is loss of structure, loss of identity, loss of relationships, loss of purpose, and then the loss of power. So if you look at the loss of structure, it simply means that you miss having that routine. You miss getting up, you miss driving to campus, you miss going to your classes. All right, so that may happen to you. The loss of identity is you're no longer recognized as the expert. So you're no longer the professor. And that may or may not happen to you, of course. We spend, 18 years, 20 years getting ready for your career. And then you work 20 or 30 years at your career. So you pretty much have been an expert all along those years, and you're no longer there. The loss of relationships. This probably impacted me the most. Just the fact that, you know, I got up in the morning, I had nobody to talk to. I had no colleagues to talk to. I had no students. I had nobody to go get coffee with. So the loss of relationships may or may not be a part of that. And one of the things that people have said is one of the ways to get back that relationship is to join the Retirees Association. We have to put in that plug every now and then. Okay, so then you have the loss of purpose. So that just means that you have no deadlines. There's no lectures to give. There's no papers to grade for most of us. Of course, that may not be a loss. You may enjoy not grading those papers. Then you have the loss of power. And that just means that, you know, you're no longer that team leader. No one comes to you for advice anymore because you are part of a department. And my guess is that as an instructor or educator or someone that works at the campus in general, that you did a lot of problem solving, whether it was with students, whether it was with faculty, you did some problem solving, and you no longer do a lot of problem solving. The other thing that you might lose, is the fact that you no longer want to spend that extra time with your spouse or partner. So, or you just simply get bored and tired. Now, the nice thing, I guess if you can call it a nice thing, about going through all of this loss, this particular phase, is it really makes you think that, okay, I'm tired of this. I want to move on. I want to do something different. I want to be able to contribute. So therefore, then that takes us into the next phase, which is phase 3. And in phase 3, this is like a trial and error phase, but I also thought it was sort of a fun time phase and maybe an experimental time. And this is the phase where you actually start saying, well, what can I do to contribute? Do I contribute to my community? Do I contribute to my homes association? Do I contribute to my church? And there's a lot of things that you have to look at and say, how can I give back? Or how can I do something that's worthwhile? So, and there are tons of activities that you can do. And Anita had a whole couple, 2 or 3 slides of all the things that you can volunteer. And you can volunteer in any community setting. Johnson County Parks and Rec is also another one. I don't know if that was on that slide or not, but Johnson County Parks and Rec has tons and tons of courses to take. Not only could you take them, but you could probably go and teach some of those, because they teach a lot of things to young kids. They teach to senior citizens. So all of those activities you can become involved. The other thing is my guess that as you have worked your 20 or 30 years, you probably have had your own hobbies, whether it's golf, maybe it is fishing, maybe it's some kind of art, maybe you've taken painting classes. And so you can continue with those things after you retire and maybe enhance them as you go along. So if any of these efforts that you do, if volunteering, if Jonathan decided he didn't like crawling around on the floor, then he could find another volunteer activity to do. So you can't, this says, even though if you fail, then you want to do something different. I don't think you fail. I think it's just that you haven't found the thing that makes you happy. So that's what you want to do. You want to be inquisitive enough and you want to be open-minded. And eventually you get into phase 4, which Dave's never going to get to. But no, he may already be in phase 4. So phase 4 is where you reinvest or you repurpose your life. And when you get to this phase, I think you probably will have a real sense of meaning for you. I think you have a real sense of satisfaction in your retirement life. So you're in phase 4 when you've identified your unique abilities and your personal strengths. You're there when you can review your life's high points, what made you happy, and use them as a springboard to continue on or do something different. You combine your unique abilities with your life's high points to identify, sort of what your life purpose is, at least in your retirement phase. Excuse me. So now that you've taken the action to put all of these things in place, you found your plan, you found your dreams, then that provides you with a new structure or a different structure. It gives you a new identity. It gives you new relationships, especially with volunteering. It gives you a renewed purpose. And the thing is, you're finally doing something that you love to do, and you're doing that very well. And you have structure and a purpose in life for you as well as for others. Okay, and so we're all on the same, we're all on a different path, really, because you know, you may go through phase 1, you may go through phase 2, you may skip phase 3. It all depends, but that's up to you. And in this book, I think it's referenced, is it this? Yeah, it's referenced on this slide. There was a study that Harvard did over 20 years. They interviewed 15,000 retirees. And the one key thing that they found after interviewing these retirees was that the unhappiest retirees had not gone on to do anything productive beyond pleasing themselves. So they basically never got out of phase 1. So Dave's not in that phase, really. He's moved on. He really has. So, you know, there's just so many opportunities out there. You just have to figure out which one works for you and what it is that you can become involved in, and especially the service to others. The volunteering thing is an excellent way to do this. So always remember to do something fun and do something fulfilling, be productive and stay active. And of course, I will say again, join the Retirees Association. Okay.
You know, if I can make a comment really quick about what Jane said about the relationship part. You know, you think about it when you're in high school, you have this one set of friends. You have these friends, and then you move on to college, and then they kind of fade. And then your college friends all of a sudden become your really good friends. But then after you graduate from college, and then you go in a work environment, and they all of a sudden become your good friends. And one of the things that I've noticed since I retired is that when I was in the counseling center, that was like my second family. They were people that I enjoyed. But after the retirement stage goes on, that kind of fades out a little bit. And what now the friends I'm getting are the people that I've met through the volunteer times that I've been doing, through the Retirement Association, through my church. So there's a lot of different folks that now are in that last phase of my life that have different kinds of relationships. So you'll see that. And when I retired, I thought I'd be having contact with everybody all the time in the counseling center. And it just doesn't work out that way. Occasionally it happens, but not very often. And so that was something that I learned when I went through that stage.
Hi, I'm Lindy Robinson. I was at the college for 30 years in the business division. And I actually came to retirement very differently. I never was a traditional person anyway, did things very odd. So I think I started in phase 4. I actually retired to take care of my husband. And I have to tell you, it was one of the best things I ever did in my life. But today I get to tell you about the fun things and the reasons you should join our association. As you would think, the Retirees Association is the highest quality, just like Johnson County Community College. It just sort of continues. And I have made, like Dave said, so many friends that I probably knew their name on campus, but probably never interacted with them unless maybe there was an issue. So it's just been an incredible organization for me. And to be honest, I think I am now starting into phase 3, but that's okay. Jonathan, the next slide. Okay, we're going to go through several slides to show you why you should join the association, what we have done in 2021 to 22, and then what we have scheduled going on for the rest of the year. Jonathan? I'm not going to read every single one of them. I'm going to just highlight one on each slide and say something about that. And then you'll get our presentation, and if you want to go back and look at some of the things. But on June 24th, we did the Veterans Community Project, which was just a wonderful opportunity to volunteer. We try to do a lot of volunteerism individually and with the organization. The next one was on the 7th, July 15th, the Oswith down at Union Station, which if you haven't seen that, unfortunately, I believe it's moved on, but it was heart-wrenching for anyone I spoke to that had gone to that exhibit. And the thing that amazed me the most, Union Station, as you walked through, the whole place was silent. It just seemed, and I think I was there for 3 to 4 hours, and it was silent the entire time. Just amazing. The next one was August 24th with Dave. We went to, or I didn't go this time, to Pickwick Barbecue and then the Steamboat Arabia. Dave is always taking us to new barbecue outlets, which is great. He seems to be our barbecue king, and I think he does it at home also, a little. October 12th, Anita gave a presentation on the presidential libraries and museums on Zoom. Anita is truly an expert. She doesn't tout her horn about this one, but she has visited 13 of the presidential libraries. Her goal was to visit every single one of them. And it just, when you talk to her about them, you can just feel her excitement about them. I think it's a wonderful thing, but we do that one on Zoom. On November 4th, they did the genealogy series, which is going to start back up. I haven't participated in that one, but I understand that one of the things that we all should probably think about, maybe not with the services that are out there, this would be a better way of doing it. And going back and looking into your family history. I have been asked from my family, from my children, to start writing my life story. Haven't started it yet, but it's one thing that all of us should really think about because we're losing that. People don't write letters anymore. What do? We text. We don't talk to each other as often as we used to. You need to be thinking about maybe just writing down, where were you born? When were you born? Who are your siblings? What did you do? I happen to have great-grandparents and grandparents' family histories. And to go back and read them is truly inspiring as to what they went through. So I encourage all of you to join the genealogy sessions that will be starting back up in the fall. Let's see, the next one was December 13th, the floral classes with Diana Ryan. She's just a marvelous florist, always gracious to help us out. We do it every December, and we have started now. We're doing one around Easter time, a spring one. We just sort of call Diana, and she's always willing to do them. It costs, I think, $20. She's wonderful. You can do it in the greenhouse, and you always get to take home a creation, which is nice. On January 6th, we did emergency preparedness on Zoom. Very interesting. Here we are in tornado season? And we've already seen what has happened this spring. They say it's going to be very difficult spring for us. Lois told me down in Western Kansas, I don't know where she went, exactly where this was, but they had 8 inches of rain last night and everything's flooded. So besides just tornadoes, there's a lot of other things that we need to be prepared about. The last thing I'll say on that, and it's because I come from a food background, if you haven't heard, we're talking about having major food shortages in this country. And I encourage everyone to start stocking up on shelf-stable food, pasta, beans, rice. And right now, the information I'm getting is saying October of 22 is when we're really going to see our shortages start. October of 22, which is this fall. And the restaurateurs and the people that supply the food to the restaurants and that type of thing are telling me that it will land. It's going to continue on until 25. And I could get into a lot of reasons for that, but that's not my goal today. So we're going to move on to that. All right. On February 16th, the infamous wine group got together. There's a huge group of people that do wine tasting. I'm not one of them, but if I understand correctly, it's a very social event. And if you like wine and you're social, well, you don't even have to be social, I don't think. I think the group will help you on that. So on April 20th, we did the photo travel Zoom session. Anytime anybody goes on a trip, Jonathan is wonderful about helping somebody put together a Zoom presentation about where they've been, what they have done. Before you go, he asks for a lot of pictures, for you to take a lot of pictures so he can put a Zoom together for you. And it just so happens I'm getting ready on August. I'm going to Tahiti. So I'm going to come home with lots of pictures. The next one tells us about the things we have coming up for this year. Just quickly, one of the most exciting things to me, the second Wednesday of every month, Chef John Head is going to present healthy cooking. And if you know John, if you've never met John, he is just this unbelievable chef that has so much knowledge about everything with food. I'm really looking forward to his session every month on the second Wednesday of the month. On May 25th, June 22nd, we're going to be doing Two Oceans. And Jonathan, I believe this one's yours, isn't it? On Kanapali, which is in Hawaii, which is really very interesting when you think about two oceans. I'm anxious to see this one. On May 25th, June 15th, and July 20th, we've already got wine tasting scheduled. So if you're retiring, like at the end of the semester, you can get signed up. August 13th, June 17th, which is important, is our general meeting in the Camp Fed. Even if you aren't retiring right now, you'd be more than welcome to come to our general meeting and just see what we do. You know, the board will all be there. August 13th, we're doing the celebration of Gene Hahn's life. For those of you who don't know Gene Hahn, he actually was one of the original employees of this college down in Mission. And his very first job assignment was to start building every building on this campus. Gene was an incredible individual. We lost him in December, but the college has agreed that we're going to do a celebration of Gene Hahn's life. And hopefully there could be a naming for Gene, but we will see. That one's still in the works. The last one I had down was the genealogy is with Julian Crabtree. We'll be starting again. It returns in the fall. And then I believe there's one on here, the November 17th fall general meeting. So by then, some of you may be retired. And if you are, we would really welcome you to our organization. So I'm not sure who is ending. Oh, I guess question and answers.
Well, I want to let you know, you don't have to be retired to join the JCCC Retirees Association. You can join now and begin coming to any of our events that you're interested in. The last few slides, as we've talked about, will show the sources for some of the information we shared today. And if you've left your email on the sign-in sheet, we'll get you a link to the presentation, hopefully, and or a copy of the PowerPoint presentation. No questions, last chance. Anita,
Lori?
I believe that you have to be fully CAPERS retired to participate in the free tuition for the credit classes, and also as a fully retired or CAPERS retired individual. You can also take non-credit classes on a wait list or space available. I think you have to have the 85 points and fully CAPERS retired to participate in those things here at the college. That's not
Okay,
true
see
for
if you
our
can find it.
organization, but it is true for some of the benefits that the college gives us.
If there are no questions, I have 3 comments. One is you don't have to wait till you retire to join the JCCRA.
It's not on here.
Number 2, that's the commercial plug. The second thing is just for whatever it's worth, my daughter manages healthcare at 28 facilities in I think it's either 4 or 5 states. And she is constantly telling me, do not do Medicare Advantage. Do not do a managed care system. And it's because they will tell the residential center or wherever you may end up, they will tell them, for instance, you are eligible for 2 days of PT, physical therapy, for a week, when the doctor is saying you need 5. And there are a lot of other ways in which they are always cutting costs. So for what it's worth, I would avoid the Medicare Advantage programs or what are called managed care programs. And the third comment is, I retired 11 years ago, and the first thing I did was go home and help my wife rearrange the kitchen and take over the finances that she had handled for, umpteen years. That's not the way to start your retirement. So just be very careful of your spouse's feelings when you retire, whether they're already retired or not.
One of the things I might recommend too, because we have a lot of questions about Medicare and financial planning or whatever, what I did is I went around and talked to probably 7 or 8 of my friends and talked to several of them who I thought had a very good plan. And I looked at all their plans, and if 3 or 4 of them all had the same plan, they seemed to be very successful. Then I says, who do you talk to? That's what I did. I went around and I found 2 really good people by doing that. And everybody else can do it in different kinds of ways, but because it's confusing at different times. And I think it's really good to probably have a good, first of all, financial planner for sure. And then also someone who knows Medicare really good. And there are people out there that know that. And you just have to be careful that if you just kind of take it by luck, you just never know about the reputation. So it's always important for me to know the reputation. And I found that out because I knew good friends who told me and who that was. That's how I worked through my process.
Yeah, Dave's right. There are companies out there that will guide you through that Medicare process. And so talk to people, see who they've used in the past and if they've been satisfied with them. Gail is a volunteer with SHIC right now. Any other questions?
Lori, let me just say, I just pulled it up online tomorrow, and it's very well explained. If you look under Johnson County Community College reimbursement of tuition, it goes through it in much more detail than I did, and I won't take time right now. Thank you.